We don't spend 100% of our time just on Google properties. And specifically when it comes to luxury and beauty and fashion, a lot of the insight and the data comes from other platforms, such as Instagram, TikTok, Snap, Facebook. And it's true that as I was working for Google, I could not access this data. And even if I could access it, I could not officially leverage it because I was working for Google. So I thought, what if I could apply similar processes, similar analysis that the one we were doing on YouTube and Google, but add as well TikTok data, Instagram data. And so that's how I got the idea of Submarine AI. The goal with Submarine is really to empower luxury executives as they're thinking about their next campaign, their next product development. What Submarine does is that we leverage AI in order to analyze tens of millions of posts from luxury, beauty, and fashion brands on social media, analyze all these posts, and create nuggets of truth, nuggets of gold that we call insights that an executive can access in just a few minutes.
If only I had Submarine AI when I was at Chanel, it would have made my life way easier.
And in a world where anybody can create something that is flawless, having this way to create products that are not flawless, but that can create an emotional link with people becomes key. There is one article that I always share with my students, and it's called The Anti-Laws of Marketing. It's a list of 25 anti-laws that define luxury marketing. And one of them is no flaws, no charm.
Welcome to Beyond Luxury, where we explore emerging trends and take them one step further. Join us as we redefine the meaning of luxury in today's ever-evolving world. Building on the themes of my book, Beyond Luxury, The Promise of Emotion, we invite thought leaders from fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, hospitality, culture, and tech to share their insights and story. So, David, thank you so much for joining me here. I'm at the London podcast studios in Platoon 7, and you are in New York. So thank you so much for joining me today at the Beyond Luxury podcast. I'm super excited to speak with you, first of all, because one of the first I think newsletters in luxury ever that I followed was yours at What the Lux, and I would get it all the time, and it was such an engaging, awesome newsletter, and I never thought I'd get to meet the founder of it. So here we are, very excited. You have really gone from being an entrepreneur since a very, very, very young age. I think you were 18 or 19 when you birthed your first venture. And then you went on to ventures like Dimon, you worked for PayPal, you worked for VCs, then you went into Google, always kind of in the space of luxury and fashion, since all of the touch points you had in your own family to this world and looking into what digital and the internet could bring to this space. And now you're leading and founding a incredible venture called Submarine AI that is really collecting so much information to allow us to understand the biggest insights in luxury and trends and where things are going. So I'm super excited to have you on here today. I'm really excited to talk about your journey, AI, data, luxury, and all of the above. So it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Carlotta. I'm glad to be here as well and as excited as you to get started.
Super. David, why don't you go through a little bit on your career and how your life through very early entrepreneurship kind of turned into tech, AI, fashion, luxury, and also has done a great pivot into academia.
Yeah, that's funny because I always say that I've always worked with luxury brands, but I've never worked for a luxury brand. I've never been an employee of a luxury brand. And it's true that I had a very early introduction to the world of luxury as my mother had luxury stores in Paris when I was a kid. She had a small chain of stores. She was mainly a Richemont reseller, so selling brands like Cartier, Montblanc, and so on and so forth. So at a very early age, I discovered the world of luxury, its products, its language, its codes, its clients, and so on and so forth. And for some reason, I fell in love with this world, fell in love with luxury brands and their stories, and later their strategies. And that's been, like the common element of my entire career. So I've always had a career that was rooted into luxury, but also innovation. I launched a startup called Dimon, as you mentioned, that was a marketplace of luxury craftsmen. I've created a newsletter called What the Lux, where I shared insights about the luxury world. And then I joined Google, where I've worked for almost 6 years in the team in charge of providing insights and data analysis to luxury fashion and beauty brands. And so throughout my career, I've always had this one foot into luxury, one foot into digital and technology, which led me to my current venture, Submarine AI, which I'm sure we're gonna talk into more detail later, but which brings together the world of AI and luxury. So never worked for luxury brands, but always worked with luxury brands.
And then now you have been teaching in a lot of different academic programs, notably in the NYU luxury program. How did that start off, and how did you decide to have that as a branch of what you do in your everyday?
Yeah, I've always been teaching in parallel of my career. I actually gave my first class more than 10 years ago. So I know it makes me sound like as if I were like 50 or 60 years old, which I'm not, for those of you who have the video, who are watching the video version. But I've been teaching for 10 years at various schools and universities, first in France, in places like HEC or the French Fashion Institute, and then in the US in various schools, including NYU, where I am now an adjunct professor. And I teach approximately 150 hours a year in luxury marketing and strategy to graduate students, so who are in their last year or last semester of class here at NYU. And I teach classes that go from the basic and foundational introduction to luxury e-commerce, retail, e-marketing, strategy, and until the most disruptive topics such as luxury and AI, luxury and Web3. So all the things you need to know today to become, like an efficient luxury executive, luxury marketer, in today's world that's always changing, always challenging.
And in that topic of conversation, what do you think of building a career in the luxury tech space today, since that's one of the big topics that you're teaching about, and especially a lot of students are most likely in your classes to want to go into this space? What are some tips that you could give people that want to go into a luxury tech career?
Yeah, it's funny because as you say it today, like putting together tech and luxury seems very obvious. It's like necessary. If you want to make it into luxury, you have to understand also its tech component and technology and digital. But when I started teaching 10 years ago, everybody was, it was more like a question mark. Everybody was wondering to what extent will digital, like digital marketing, e-commerce, and other elements of the digital experience, to what extent will they impact the luxury experience? And I remember meeting a lot of skepticism back then, 10 years ago, or even before when I started working on those topics. Now, everything has changed, and whatever role you want to get in luxury, whether it is retail, marketing, supply chain, brand management, anything, it will have some components that are deeply rooted into tech. And I think it's going to be even more in the future with the role that AI is taking in our lives and the possibilities that it's giving to marketers and executives today and the ones that it will give in the future. I think that tech will take a bigger and bigger place. And also I think that if you want to get a job in luxury, you can really set yourself apart by gaining additional skills and a better understanding about technology. So, it's not that hard to understand how e-marketing works and maybe, get a certification from Google and one from Meta and one from Amazon Ads. And suddenly, you have an additional skill that will set yourself apart from many other competitors on the job market. It's not that complicated to start, like launch a podcast or launch a newsletter or even write a book about those topics, which will definitely make a difference the day you are looking for a job. So what I tell my students is that, of course, it would be great if they could all have 10 years of experience in luxury. It would help their resume and help them get a job. But because they will not gain 10 additional years of experience between now and the end of the semester, one thing they can do is really boost their digital skills. And so that's why, like for instance, this semester, I ask all my students to get between 2 to 5 digital certifications. I make them create a Web3 wallet. I make them use Meta AR Spark, which is the tool to create augmented reality experiences. I make them meet many guest speakers from, of course, luxury brands, but also tech companies from Google, from Meta, from Amazon, from Snap, because I think that technology, is here for good, and the role and the importance of technology in general, but also in particular in luxury, will only increase. There's this quote from the famous American venture capitalist Mark Andreessen, he wrote this article, said software is eating the world. And that was like 10 or 15 years ago. I think that now software has eaten the world. So tech is everywhere and is extremely important.
I love that that mindset and having kind of that impetus given to your students. I truly do also recommend writing a book or having a newsletter or something that can also help you in that sense. We both know that it helps you get pretty far.
We're creating our own competition right now. Like we're telling people, okay, do the same as us, compete with us. But
exactly.
the market is big.
We welcome competition.
Of course.
And I think that I want to rewind like all the way back because you started doing this super young, and I love the story about how you got into tech, not even knowing that when e-commerce was just a thing when you were helping your mom with Grain de Luxe. Can you go through that process? Because that's probably what you are doing now with your students and bringing them into the new tech. You did that on your own when you were super young to kind of expand what e-commerce looked like in the luxury world. So let's go back into that, and then we can go through a little bit your story through there.
Yeah, definitely. So the reason why I started to think about the intersection between tech and luxury was, as you said, because of the story of my mother's stores. And back then, I was a geek. I was passionate about technology, and even when I was in high school and before, I was creating websites, selling websites, and trying to launch some side hustles or some businesses online. And at some point, I realized that my mom had this huge inventory that was standing on the shelves in the warehouse of her stores, and we were not doing anything with it. And I thought it was the beginning of e-commerce, even though Amazon was started in the mid-90s, but at first it was mostly for non-expensive products such as books. And here we were, in the mid-2000, we were like 2007, 2008. And I thought, why not put this inventory that we had in the warehouse on a website, create an e-commerce website, and see if we can sell it online. And something that might sound absurd today, but that was like fantastic back then, was that many of those brands were not sold online at all. So if you think as a brand like Cartier or Montblanc, they were prominent luxury brands that were very, very much searched for online. But if you would search for buy a Cartier product on Google back then, there would be no results because Cartier was not selling in Europe. They were only selling in Japan and in the US, but not selling their products in Europe. And so put yourself in the shoes of someone who's made a bit of money and wants to buy luxury, but doesn't live in a big city. They're not in Paris or Lyon or Marseille or London or Geneva. Then in order to buy a gift for their wife or their kids, it's an ordeal. It's a real challenge. They have to take their car, maybe drive for an hour or two to go to the nearest city or to an airport. So it was hard. And back then, you could not buy it online. So I went to see the luxury brands. I negotiated with them. Of course, with my mother, I was like, I think I was like, I don't know, like 19 or 18 at that time. So a little young to go by myself. But we went together, and I told them like, let's try it. Let's see if people are going to buy it online. And we got the first digital selective distribution license that authorized us to sell those products online. And it was incredible because imagine those products were very much searched for. They were impossible to be found elsewhere than on our website. So we would buy, the like Google ads for such like a ridiculously small amount of money, and then sell the product at the same price as you would find them in the store. So there was no discount. We're not allowed to give any discount or anything like that. We would provide the same experience with a very nice gift wrap, packaging, very fast delivery, as much as we could do back in the days. And so we had this tremendous business. And that's how I realized, okay, it's not like digital, it's not just to communicate. It's not only the power of social media and creating beautiful videos, but it can also be a strong driver of business and revenue. So I experienced it firsthand.
Fantastic. And then from there, what happened? What did you do?
Yeah, so then from there, I remember, so at first we were selling mostly big brands, big luxury brands. And then, I started to discover the world of craftsmanship. And I realized that in parallel to those big luxury brands, you also had amazing craftsmen who would create the most exquisite products, sophisticated product with beautiful leather or materials, very precious know-how and gestures. And I thought, what if on the side of the big brands, I start selling directly the creations of those craftsmen? And so I remember we started with a line of accessories. It was back in the day, it was the first iPad has just been released. And so we asked to this craftsman to create accessories for the iPad in precious leather. So you had like alligator leather, galusha leather, which is, like a stingray leather, or ostrich leather. So all those accessories, but for iPads. It was the first luxury iPad accessories that you could find online. And we would sell it at a more reasonable price than what a luxury brand would sell, typically. But still, the quality was super high and the experience was flawless. And I realized that these products were also very interesting to people. And I thought, maybe there's something to do with going directly to craftsmen instead of, going through the mediation of the brand. And that's how I got the idea of Dimon, which was the marketplace that I launched after this first website. So after that, my mom sold her stores. So that was the end of this adventure. And the person that bought it didn't continue the online adventure. Too bad for him, because it was a good business. But so I decided to recreate an online marketplace of luxury goods, but that time focusing on craftsmen. And so that's how Dimon started.
Stop everything you're doing. If you love our podcast and are passionate about the future of luxury, don't forget to hit follow. The more followers we have, the bigger guests we can bring on. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. So thank you. Incredible. After that, you did some VC work and you found yourself at the head of luxury for data at Google, first in France and then in New York City. How was your time at Google looking at data for luxury brands, and what was kind of the thing that you were missing that you saw when you were there?
Yeah, so it's funny because I really ended up at Google out of luck. It was not planned. It was not my strategy or even my dream to join a big tech company. I didn't really know exactly what was happening in those big tech companies. In my mind as an entrepreneur, the only contact I had with Google specifically when you have an e-commerce business, is that you receive calls from people from call centers of Google trying to sell you Google ads. So for me, in my mind, Google was, like a sort of big call center with people calling you to sell you more ads. And randomly, like through a common connection, I met with the head of luxury, the person who was head of luxury back then. And literally, I had like a professional crush on her. We discussed for a long time. I thought she was fascinating. She explained to me what they were doing with luxury brands at Google, the partnership, the technological project, the innovation project, how Google was really a partner of the biggest luxury brands in their digital transition, in their digital strategy. All this sounded like amazingly interesting to me. And so she convinced me to join Google. And at first, I thought I would stay maybe 6 months or a year at Google, just to learn a bit from them. And then I would go back to entrepreneurship. And I liked it so much and had such a good time there that I stayed for almost 6 years. And as you said,
for an
first I was...
that's a long time.
As you know, that's a very long time. But I loved it. I met amazing people there. I've made some lifelong friends. I've made some terrific business contact. I've learned a ton. I had almost never worked in data, and I had never worked in for a luxury brand. So everything was new, and I had never worked for a big company. So all this was very new to me. I was trained by Google. I learned a ton. It was sometimes it was a little hard. It was intense. I've worked a lot during those years, but all in all, it was a super positive experience. However, when you have the entrepreneurial fire burning inside of you, whatever you're doing that is not entrepreneurial, you're not going to be fulfilled. And so, even though I was very happy at Google, and if I had to do it again, I would do exactly the same again, all over again. At some point, I felt that my true calling was creating something more personal.
And what was it that your more personal thing had that you had missed in your life at Google with data, serving big clients in the luxury fashion and beauty spaces? What pushed you to make this new venture called Submarine AI?
Yeah, so the thing is that when I was at Google, my role was to leverage the vast quantity of data that we had at Google, coming from Google Search, YouTube, and all the other Google properties. And I was leveraging all this data, analyzing it, and trying to identify insights that we would share with the biggest advertisers in the luxury, beauty, and fashion world. And as I was doing this, I realized how powerful those insights were and how helpful they were to those clients. At many occasions, I've seen the clients that we were talking to, and I was presenting to them a specific analysis on, fashion on YouTube, or the new behavior of younger consumer related to search, or how people were interacting with the fragrance category, and so on and so forth. So I would be presenting insights based on this data to those clients, and I would see, their face, light up, and I would see how those insights that we would provide them were helpful and could impact their strategy in such a big way. And then I thought it's great to do this with Google's data. Google and YouTube are key parts of the consumer journey. But it's not 100% of our digital lives. We don't spend 100% of our time just on Google properties. And specifically when it comes to luxury and beauty and fashion, a lot of the insight and the data comes from other platforms, such as Instagram, such as TikTok, such as Snap, such as Facebook, and so on and so forth. And it's true that as I was working for Google, I could not access this data. And even if I could access it, I could not officially leverage it because I was working for Google. And at the end of the day, even though I was not a salesperson, I was still part of a company, and my goal was to promote this company. So I thought, what if I could apply this similar processes, similar analysis that the one we were doing on YouTube and Google, but add as well TikTok data, Instagram data, and so on and so forth. And so that's how I got the idea of Submarine AI. And the goal with Submarine is really to empower luxury executives as they're thinking about their next campaign, their next product development. And what Submarine does is that we leverage AI in order to analyze tens of millions of posts from luxury, beauty, and fashion brands on social media, analyze all these posts, and create nuggets of truth, nuggets of gold that we call insights, that an executive can access in just a few minutes. So instead of having, let's say you're preparing your next campaign, let's say it is about fragrance, and instead of having to watch tens or maybe hundreds of campaigns from your competitors in order to get what are the trends, what are they about, you can just go on Submarine, you filter the trends by fragrance, and you can tell, okay, this is being leveraged by my competitors, this generates much more engagement than other kind of content. Here are some examples. Here are some an executive summary about the trend. And I feel like giving this to a luxury executive, help them create better content, boost their business, have more data-informed strategies. And I felt like if only I had this tool when I was at Google, my life would have been much easier. So that's the tool. I created the tool that would have made my life much easier when I was at Google.
Well, I can say the same thing. If only I had Submarine AI when I was at Chanel, it would have made my life way easier. I think that 3 months of research on trends translates into maybe 3 seconds to really analyze what luxury and beauty brands are doing and make sense of millions and millions of social media posts in moments where you get all this nuggets of insights of what you're looking for.
And this kind of things was impossible to do just a few years ago, even just a few months ago. AI is not a new thing. We've had AI for a long time. We can date the beginning of AI maybe in the middle of Second World War. When we cracked the Enigma code using some form of advanced computing back then. So AI is not new, but the kind of AI that has been developed over the last few years, and also the kind of computing power that we have access to, and the kind of how cheap it has become and how easy it has become to leverage all this technology at scale. This is brand new, and I feel like we're at a moment with AI where all of us, maybe you, me, and the people who are listening to the podcast, we know that there's something to be done with AI. We feel like it's important. We feel like we don't want to miss this opportunity. Let's say we are like someone's a beauty or luxury or fashion executive. We can, the evangelization phase is over. We're evangelized. We know it's important. But how are we going to leverage this technology? How are we going to do something that's meaningful for the business, that's going to be impactful? And I think we're at a moment where you either have some extremely advanced technologies, like foundational layers of technologies, such as the models, the LLMs. You have thousands, if not millions, of models, closed source, open source, that can do everything, but then you don't really know what to do with them. They can do whatever you want, but say what it is that I want to do with them, I don't know. Or you have, some AI tools that are being released every day. Every day there's a new AI tool that can help you with your email, help you analyze documents, help you doing financial analysis, and so on and so forth. But very often they promise a lot of things. They have an amazing demo, but when you look at the actual output when you use them, it's not production ready. It means there are still a lot of hallucination from the AI. You still need a bit of human work to make it professional, to make it accurate. With Submarine, it's a little different. Our promise is much more humble. We're not going to revolutionize the world. We're not going to make the world a better place. Maybe one day, maybe in the next version.
You're making the life of employees in luxury brands a better.
Exactly.
A better
so that's our humble objective. Is we're going to make the life of luxury executive simpler by giving them access to summarized versions of insights and trends, so that they don't have to watch millions or hundreds of videos. So much more humble, much more concrete. But I think we're in a phase of AI where you need to have a specific use case that's concrete, nail it, and then you can expand to other things.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think you're building the magic tool, and we've now partnered with Submarine AI for the Beyond Luxury Substack that comes out every week, and we get incredible data snippets from there. And Carolina, that you know well, that is the lead editor, gets incredible snippets from Google data as well. But what we get from you with Submarine AI is it goes 4 steps further. So that's always such incredible insights to use and to tell better stories. Stay tuned to hear some fashion tips from my brilliant stylist, Paulina Arenas. Paulina, I'm so excited to have you here and talk a little bit about how we started working together, because you've now been my personal stylist for the past few months, and we've been doing so many incredible things together. from the closest to close of having you go into my house and look at all of the things I own and really going through it and curating it, to the biggest of speaking gigs and galas that I've been to. So this podcast is one of the big projects we've been doing together. I had been seeing your work in campaigns before. I also had the privilege to know you on a personal level before that, and have always admired the way that you dressed. And so I was so honored when you accepted my proposal to have you as my personal stylist. I would love you to tell us a little bit about what your methodology is, because I truly think it's different to most stylists I know, and how you go about it when you do it in campaigns versus in personal styling, how we've been doing it together. And I truly think it's your mark and your identity that really makes it all kind of click and feel like we're able to really express the best identity and the best way forward.
So with you, it's a pleasure to be working together too. Thank you for having me here. So there's two different methodologies that I use. With you, we're doing kind of a mix of both, because we're doing for example, on a personal level, we did the cleaning of your closet, where we started. It was a process where we started and saw from socks to blazers to winter clothes to anything you can think of that a woman has in their closet. And then with that, I use the questions that I sent you, where we talked about your spirit animal, your favorite song, what colors make you feel good, how do you feel better, open back, front, what. Like, all these little questions that I asked you gave me an idea of like who Carlota is and how Carlota feels her best self.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that is part of my methodology on a personal level, is getting to know you and how you feel good, because I feel like those little snippets really change everything when we're looking for clothing to make you express and look in your bestest self. And then when we're doing it in a more like campaign way or a campaign approach that I see it, is I ask you about the colors, like the stage, who's going, what's the purpose, what are you speaking about. For example, when we did it for Mexico and that we used banzo, I think it really helped me to see the colors. That's why I chose a blue blazer for you that would express more your features. So I feel like doing the mix of both is like the biggest like 360 styling that somebody can do, because I'm doing from a personal level to events where we need to look at colors and have like more view of the space than a view of how you want to look.
In the end, I think that your true kind of unique point is that you're a storyteller, and you're a storyteller through what people wear and through how they're expressing themselves. And I remember when you asked me, like, give me every single person you're going to have on your podcast. And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, right. So she's going to use that, and you researched all of them, and you wanted to know what everyone had done and what they look like and what they normally dress like, because it's all about telling a coherent story. And it's so clear that also when you were referencing banzo in Mexico, which actually we're wearing banzo again today, but an incredible Mexican artisan that is doing incredible pieces now at very high values, and now she's starting to be known all over the world, talking at a luxury event. And really, you coined so well, like everyone was like, wow, did you match the stage on purpose? I was like, well, I do have a stylist. But it's true that there's a really good storytelling around that, and that's really one of the things that I feel so when you say that I feel the best self, I do feel like my most confident self. And that's kind of something that everyone always strives to feel, right? And when you have this capsule closet that you mentioned, that's really easy to actually start learning how to do it yourself and matching things together, and you make it so easy to do that. So it's been a super wonderful journey to start learning.
Yeah. Also, in this, my methodology comes from a place with a lot of intention, as I feel like the fashion world has always been known as a very superficial world, but I think that there's a deeper meaning to it once you do it with intention, and this is exactly what we're trying to do together. Mm-hmm. From the way the fabric that you're wearing was sourced to the person that is making it, to the place that it's being made at. And I feel like once you connect these two things together is when you stop in the street and you're like, oh my God, that person looks amazing. It's not really, it's the blazer, but it's not. It's everything behind it and why that person wears that blazer like they wear it. So I think that that's what we're doing with you, and that's exactly what we tried to do in Luxury Lab Global. That's exactly what we were going for there.
How can people follow you, and how can people talk to you today?
So everyone can follow me on Instagram, Pulgarenas, and you can contact me via DM. I've been getting all my clients and campaigns through that.
That wraps up part 1 of this episode. The conversation doesn't stop here. Make sure to dive into part 2 for more insights, stories, and perspectives you won't want to miss. For weekly updates on future trends and the latest insights and data on the luxury industry, be sure to follow us on the Beyond Luxury's weekly Substack. Discover our bespoke trend reports and come to us for luxury futures consulting at Beyond Luxury Group.